Hey everybody, I'm Bryan Grossman, Editor-in-Chief of the Colorado Springs Independent. This is the Indy 15, the weekly show that recaps everything you need to know in the news. Our guests in studio today are photographer Bryan Oller and managing editor Helen Lewis. We're talking about photojournalism today. Welcome everybody, Bryan and Helen.
Good to be here.
Great to be here.
Great to be. Oh, he beat you.
Oof.
Yeah. Bryan Oller is the first ever full-time staff photographer we've had here, at least during my stint with the Independent. I wanted to talk a little bit about Bryan's background and how you got into photography to begin with.
Geez, that's an old one. High school.
Yeah.
High school. That was it. That's when the bug hit.
Like
Hasn't
yearbook
stopped.
or newspaper?
No, just a class. It was a photography class, Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
I don't know if you even remember him, but he's the one who hooked me into not just taking pictures, but just the whole idea of conceptual photography, photojournalism. So that's the beginning.
And you said you don't know if I remember him because we actually went to the same high school.
That is correct.
Yeah. A lot of Marauders around here.
Mitchell Marauders.
Yeah. So, and I know even Helen plays around with cameras from time to time.
Yeah.
How did you get into photography?
Brian probably did the same thing as me. I basically lived in the darkroom in high school because it was a darkroom then.
Yeah.
And our school was lucky to have one. So when I wasn't in the art room, I was in the darkroom. But I have been trying to get my hands on cameras for one of I think the first picture of me holding someone's camera that I shouldn't have had was when I was like 2.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that ever since. Not a professional like Bryan, not a career of it, but there's something magical about it.
Oh,
and
definitely.
When you can do what you do, you tell stories in amazing ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's once you get the bug, it's really hard to turn it off. You know, in fact, it can be kind of annoying to people that you're around all the time. They're just like, put the camera down, stop taking pictures,
Yes.
just enjoy life. And, you know, that is how I enjoy life with my camera. I mean, it's part of my body at this point. So
I'm guessing even when I was at Mitchell, there was a darkroom there. Did you develop in a darkroom there?
there was a darkroom there.
Yeah.
And we got to print there. And, you know, what can you say? The darkroom is a pretty cool place to be. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's like you step into another planet, really, you know, even with all the red lights and everything. So
You can still smell the chemicals if you close your eyes.
my clothes still smell chemically after all these years.
You still have clothes from high school?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm wearing them right now.
You're the only one who doesn't, Brian. You throw too much stuff out.
Cross colors, leather jacket.
Yeah. Well, funny, my daughter wears my letter jacket to school.
I saw her in the Mitchell leather
Yeah.
jacket. Yeah, for the cookie contest. So, talk about after high school. Then, did you go to college with the intent to do photography?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I went to college to be a anthropologist and a history major.
Interesting.
And then I fell into the art school, fell in love with that. That taught me how to feel abstract,
Yeah.
you know, how to be abstract. That was actually a very painful experience going through that change of realism into abstraction. And that was it. That's what I did. After I left CU Boulder, moved back here, my first job was in the news realm was as a, believe it or not, an art director for the UCCS newspaper. And one day they needed some pictures taken, and I hadn't shot for a while after that, or before that, excuse me. And I picked up the camera, and it's like, boom, the magic kind of came back.
Yeah, like writing a book.
Yeah, so I was obsessed with getting into, you know, a newsroom at that point, just that news experience, knowing that it's at my fingertips now. Well, how can I get into the newspaper world? So I fought very, very hard to do that, and I landed a job at the Gazette as a sports agate clerk, which is one step closer to being in the photo department.
Right.
They had an opening there in the photo lab, so I applied for the job, got it, part-time. You know, I'm working with some of the best photojournalists in the country at that point. You know, like Mark Rice, Jay Yonner, Jerry Bennett. We see Jerry's photos all over the place. So these guys are really a huge, huge inspiration and major impact on my desire to do this work.
Yeah.
So that's where that second step happened after high school.
Yeah. And you've been with the Indy now, what, about a year and a half?
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
I have been freelancing with the Indy prior to being a staffer since 2011. So, you know, it's family to me.
Yeah.
It's familiar to me. So,
talk about, I mean, we've obviously had some big news lately, and I know you've shot a lot of big news stories, but talk about the Club Q experience.
You know, it's hard to actually get started talking about it because you still feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And in fact, you still feel like you're at Columbine. Mm-hmm. You still feel like you're at Aurora. You still feel like you're at the New Life Church, Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, I have covered a lot of this kind of news, so I don't want to say I'm numb to it, but you definitely have a very numbing experience during it because you're not part of it, and it's almost like a defense mode in a way that kind of protects you from what you're witnessing. So, you know, we obviously all got that call Sunday morning. I got out there right about 9:30 in the morning. I just went straight to it. I had no idea what to expect. You know, it was just so fresh. And yeah, the anticipation of getting there it just eats at you as you're getting there. That's how it always feels with big news stories like this. You just know that, you know, you're probably not going to be welcome, but it is part of, you know, telling the history of our city, of, in this case, the country. So, you know, you have a lot of thoughts going through your head. How can you compose yourself? How can you find a unique angle that 50 other photographers are trying to achieve as well?
Right.
And capture that moment that's going to, you know, resonate, you know, with your readership. That's not easy to do. Yeah. You know, a lot of times you just take pictures and then all of a sudden a situation happens and it lands in your lap and there it is in front of you. And, you know, we ran that really amazing photo a few weeks ago. You know, to capture a moment like that is one of the most, I don't know how to say it, it's almost embarrassing because you're staring at somebody in their moment of sheer terror, pain.
You're talking about the cover that we had of the vigil, I guess, after
the vigil,
right,
yes.
at Universalist Church.
Yeah, so trying to tune all that out, what's going on around you, the sadness, the wailing, and focus. You know, it's hard to do even after all these experiences that I've had. So, you know, it's you know, as we're talking, I'm still thinking about the sounds and the smells and how hot it was in there, just all these details. You're really trying to see through all of this to do your job. So
and capture it at the same time.
And capture it.
Yeah. Remove yourself, but get the reader to experience what you're experiencing.
Definitely. You feel like the enemy in a way. I don't know how to explain that, but I think a lot of us do when we're doing this type of photojournalism. You know, it's a very intrusive thing to do.
Sure.
So
I think when people are feeling that vulnerable, if you are not exactly one of them in that group, you are kind of seen as an outsider, or maybe even an interloper, right? Like you're interfering.
No, for real. I've had some experiences, you know, covering big events like this where, you know, I looked at as the enemy, as we all are, that are out there covering it. So, you know, that's also part of, you know, developing as a photographer is how you can handle that. And believe it or not, a lot of people can't handle that.
Yep.
You know, it's just a really, really emotional thing to do, you know.
Helen, I was just going to ask you if you've ever had to shoot anything like that.
I haven't had to shoot that kind of thing. Most of the work that I did for newspapers, you know, doing photography for newspapers, it was more planned.
After the fact kind of stuff.
Yeah, probably the only time I ever ran and got a camera, and this was pre-cell phone cameras by quite a long way, was I was leaving I was leaving my office, the newsroom, and I was walking to my car, which was parked quite a ways away, and like right in front of me in an intersection when I was about to cross a road, there was a road rage incident, and a motorcycle spun into a car, hit it, bounced off, and burst into flames.
Whoa.
And I was like,
Wow.
I'm going to guess this wasn't Australia.
It was.
It was. Wow. People have road rage in Australia, too. I thought that was uniquely American.
This-
But
I think Mad Max comes from.
true. That whole movie is 2 hours of road rage in Australia.
Probably was a Mad Max.
It was a strange. I think I was still a cadet at the time, and it was a strange feeling that my first instinct was to sprint back to the office and get a camera. I
Yeah.
did not think, better help that person. He was fine, by the way. So my guilt is not.
Right.
Yeah, he was fine. But yeah, I did sprint back to the office and get a camera and get another journalist, and we went back out. But
How are you feeling?
he was gone by then. He
Yeah.
took off.
Okay.
He did not want to be around the police. But yeah, that was a moment where afterwards I was like, what kind of person runs for the camera? But I have not had to have that experience of needing to steel myself beforehand and go in. And I wanted to know too about the when you're covering something like that. What's the relationship between you and other photojournalists that are doing the same sort of work?
It's actually really, really helpful to have other photojournalists around because, it's like strength in numbers kind of thing. In the Club Q situation, I knew probably half of the photographers. So in a way, it was just kind of like this mini reunion of, people that we hadn't seen for each other for a long time. And that was surreal in itself. You're trying to say, hey, how are you doing? But there's this tragedy unfolding right in front of you. So trying to put that in your back pocket and focus on what's in front of you is a very interesting dynamic. I want to see how you're doing, what's going on in your life, but we have a job to do. Yes, of course, there's going to be those rogue shooters out there that are going to stand right in front of you at all costs to get their picture over you, and of course that did happen. And when you're banded together with people that you share that camaraderie with, sometimes you can combat that to do your job to tell the story as well as they're trying to tell the story. So yeah, that always happens. It's a very frustrating experience, but it is part of the job. It's part of what you do, and it's why we love to do what we do, because we're always trying to get that picture that is better than somebody else's picture. It's this competition thing, but it's a really friendly competition thing. So total respect for all those working photographers out covering this. It's heavy. It's a heavy thing to do.
How has cameras, people have, professional quality cameras in their pocket now. How is that?
They do?
How's it? Well, sometimes. It's more the people shooting than the quality of the camera, I guess. How has that changed things for photography, do you think? Is it good for professional photographers that everybody's a photographer now, or is it not?
We debated this about 15 years ago.
Yep.
It was supposed to be the death knell of, photography. Everybody's been saying it for, like I said, 15 years, maybe even longer.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's been good. We've been able to, share more in the world than we ever have before. Can you imagine if we didn't capture, that police officer kneeling on the neck of George Floyd? Who says a photographer would have been there? That was a news photographer. So I think it's beneficial to society, but, it's still a very skillful profession. And if you don't have the skill to do it, then you're a photographer.
That's a good point. The distinction between just capturing an image and capturing the news, perhaps even. And I think you're right. For news, it's good that anybody can capture a moment now, but it does take skill to capture the news within that moment or know what you're looking for.
Yes, being able to spot that, feel it, capture it. That's what that's the distinction between a professional photographer and, people on the street taking pictures.
Yeah.
So,
I have to wrap up soon. We could probably talk about this all day, but I'm interested in any sort of assignments that really stand out to you from your past.
There's been so many. Probably one of the most interesting ones, and I've covered Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. The Democratic National Convention was a great one. I just can't believe all of the people that I was surrounded by in that experience. But probably one of my favorite ones was years ago. Myself and then Gazette reporter Ed Sealover traveled with Doug Lamborn for his, swearing in as a first-term congressman.
Did he put you up in the Capitol building for free?
Got a tour of the Capitol building for
Did you?
free.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually pretty cool because, for the incoming freshmen, representatives, they get a tour of a behind-the-scenes tour of the Capitol building.
Yeah.
So we got to go up into the rotunda.
Yeah.
They don't let anybody up there. So I got to follow him around and his family.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, man. That was an amazing experience. And the Lamborns actually were very good to me. They were very accepting to me. Mm-hmm. That's part of that relationship building that you have to have as a news person,
Right.
So that was a really great experience. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was the next day, I believe, when Nancy Pelosi was sworn in as the Speaker of the House, and I was there.
Yeah.
I was like literally right above her, shooting it, and that wasn't even the assignment. It was just to follow Lamborn around. Mm-hmm. So just to be there and witness that, that's one of the most profound things in my career. Of course, the next day, I wound up getting kicked out of the Capitol building,
Nice.
escorted out by the police because I went and stepped somewhere I shouldn't have. So, I want to blame Doug for that, but I won't. So,
Where did you step?
I guess when, a congressman has the floor,
Yeah.
I can't remember what the rule is, but, that's their moment.
You broke some sort of etiquette.
I broke some etiquette, and I stepped out onto a balcony to take a picture of Doug, in his first thing, and I guess that was no. This is like kind of right after 2001.
2001, right? Yeah.
Right.
So everyone was obviously amped up because of that, but yeah. That
You
was
didn't.
it.
You didn't scream from the chamber floor like a congresswoman.
No, but I got screamed at pretty hard. I got called some
You got
names
screamed at.
I've never heard before in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing more interesting than getting kicked out of the U.S. Capitol building by the Washington, D.C. police. So
You should get like a Boy Scout badge for that. There should be a pin for.
I got one. I do have one.
For getting kicked
custom
out.
made.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we have a newspaper out this week. And speaking of Bryan Oller, that's an Oller cover jam right there.
And that's my daughter Elise's little teeny tiny hand.
This is my hand.
Oh.
Oh,
Maybe it's the other one. Sorry.
oh, you mean in the photo?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. That's Bryan Oller's daughter's hand. And yeah, be sure to check out our cookie issue. It's got some recipes in there. I do want to thank Helen Lewis and Bryan Oller for joining us here at the Indy
Pleasure.
15. Don't forget to pick up this week's Indy, and it's available on newsstands or digitally at csindy.com. Let us know what you think. We read all the comments. Hit the little bell on YouTube if you want upcoming videos. This show was produced by Dave Gardner and Nick Raven and directed by Nick Raven. The videocast is distributed by Sean Cassidy. Dustin Glatz is our art director. Amy Gillentine is our publisher. I'm editor-in-chief Brian Grossman. Be sure to join us next week for another Indy 15.